Hi, I'm Tim Roberts with Sandler Training. Today I'd like to talk to you about your role as a salesperson and how you approach selling. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been frustrated getting past a gatekeeper? Have you ever been frustrated that you got thinking overs all the time when you felt like you gave a great presentation? Or sometimes you find your prospects hiding from you. What I find out, and I'm a guy that spends 11 hours a day, 5 days a week with salespeople, so I can tell you who's naughty and nice pretty quick, is that most salespeople are winging it on their alleged good people skills. Now, it's a wonderful thing, and I'm glad that people have such great human skills, but in selling today, that's not an effective or an efficient way to approach what you're doing. What we know is that buyers, your prospects, they use a system against you. They're highly trained and well disciplined. They know what they're doing every step of the way. They regularly go to negotiating school so they can figure out exactly what to do with the salespeople, the vendors as they like to call them, that come through their door. I'm going to talk to you today about the power of systematic selling. Come on in. Let's talk about what best-in-class salespeople do. The founder of our system, David H. Sandler, started studying systematic selling. He went out on his own and he started becoming a sales guy. This was after he was a part of his family business for a long time, a very successful company, and then all of a sudden he found himself voted out from the board of directors, and so he went out and took a sales job, started building his own company. Along the way, he started finding out, why do buyers treat me so badly? Why do prospects make me wait in the lobby for a half an hour? Why do they cancel meetings? Why won't they take my phone calls? He would drive an hour to a meeting and the gatekeeper would simply say, "No, they can't meet with you today, Mr. Sandler, I'm sorry." And he would drive away frustrated. So we started thinking, instead of blaming the buyers, instead of externalizing, he started thinking, maybe I'm the problem. Folks, think about that 1 second. Maybe you're the problem. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. So there's two kinds of people that gravitate towards Sandler. People who are really good, best in class, they get great results, they do great behavior all the time, and they're very good at what they want to do, except they're looking for an edge. They want to get better. And then there are folks out there who are frustrated, who things are happening to them and they're not sure why buyers are doing that, because buyers are awfully skilled at saying, "We love you, you're going to be awful good, that was a great presentation." And then they get frustrated when that buyer just disappears somewhere. And so they're looking for a way to get better at what they do too. So David Sandler, he just started thinking about it. He started thinking about what he was doing wrong. He teamed up with a guy, a behavioral psychologist named Dr. Al Luco, and they started talking about what goes on in the buyer-seller dance. And along the way, David Sandler wrote a book, "You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar," and it clearly defined the systematic approach that he came up with. So he teamed up with Dr. Luco, and one of the things that Dr. Al Luco was able to shed light on was that, you know what, David, buyers, your prospects, they're using a disciplined system against you. And there's reasons that they do it. And you can imagine why a buyer would want to use a systematic approach when dealing with salespeople, or what they like to call vendors. By the way, don't let anybody refer to you as a vendor. Start moving your mindset into that of a trusted advisor. Sandler knew that they used a system. Sandler also knew that traditional salespeople all seemed to be doing the same thing. They would practice at their craft. They thought they had a system that was very effective, but the fact of the matter is, it really gave all the power, all the negotiating rights over to the buyer, to the prospect. So Sandler started thinking about it. One of the things that he came up with, He said, you know, in typical sales training, sales management training programs, everybody is asking for technique. People call us up all the time and say, Tim, do you guys have any of those techniques over there? No, our Sandler methodology is not one that is based on techniques or slick moves or scripts to make you more effective. That's not how we do it at all. Sandler also knew that there were some people that they just did planned, consistent, daily behavior. And they knew the one thing they could control was the behavior that they did. And then Sandler knew, you know, some people just automatically win a lot more business because of how they arrive, the presence that they have, the attractiveness that they might possess alone, their beliefs about what they're capable of doing. So for David Sandler, in order to be best-in-class salesperson, he knew to be successful, and this is the success triangle he came up with, that you have to work on all three fronts: attitude, behavior, and technique. They all three support each other, and the kind of training program that he wanted to develop would reflect each one of these triangles: behavior, attitude, and technique. He referred to it as working to improve your batting average, your BAT, behavior, attitude, and technique. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about the system that the buyer shows up with. The buyer, because they just meet salespeople, vendors all the time, they use this ironclad system to keep you off balance, to keep you feeling really good, like there's a good chance that you're going to win the sale. Ask yourself, and be brutally honest, how many times have you come back from a sales call and the manager or your company owner said to you, Bobby, how did the sale go? And you high-fived the owner of the company and said, looks like we got another one, boss. And everybody was happy, everybody started applauding, and then three weeks later, the boss said, hey Bobby, can I ask you, I haven't heard any more about that. Can you tell me what's going on? And you found yourself really frustrated. You were picking up the phone, you just kept calling, you became a sales pest. And you started chasing and hounding the buyer because they said they really liked you. They really wanted to do business with you. You know what else they said? They told you how frustrated and upset with the level of service that they were getting now. Do you know why they did that? They did that to think you had a good chance at getting the business. Because you know what they were going to do in the long run? They know if they can reel you in, and if you feel really good, if you get emotionally access, they know you'll give them a better price. And better price makes them look good. That's how they get paid. So they have an ironclad system. And they also know that salespeople, they show up with a glossy brochure, enthusiasm, and a need to be liked. And they're going to do everything they can to exploit that. Let me show you a little bit more about what the buyer system looks like. First of all, let's get clear on some definitions. What is a selling system? A selling system is the process by which you develop an opportunity from start to finish, whether that finish is closing the sale or closing the file. A process is a systematic series of actions that is directed at achieving an end. It defines how you get something done, and it's a course of action that leads to a decision about a sale. Finally, it gives each action its place in a specific order and requires that it must be completed in that order if the process is to be effective. Folks, when you take a systematic approach to your work, you take control of it. You gain control of enough variables to make your positive outcomes more frequent and predictable. Simply making sure that things happen in a certain order eliminates an enormous amount of uncertainty. You know how far you have come and have a good idea exactly what will happen next. Now, let's tighten up system just a little bit more. Let's talk about what kind of systems. Let's put some appropriate words in front of them. Effective, an effective system, and efficient, two very different concepts. An effective system is one that enables you to consistently achieve a desired outcome or a set of outcomes. An efficient system is one that allows you to achieve those outcomes without wasting resources. You know, time, energy, money, etc. David Sandler, he once said that using an effective and efficient selling system makes the salesperson's behaviors and actions manageable and measurable while making the outcome predictable. Don't suppose you'd like to have a higher predictability rate. Okay, now let's come back to the buyer's system. How did the prospect system come about? Let's back up and understand the psychology behind the buyer-seller dance. Let's understand what the prospect's motives really are. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to invite you to put on the prospect's shoes. David Sandler once said, "You are my friend when you walk in my moccasins." And you know what our experience is? Most people really don't know how to get into other people's shoes. You know what we do? We sell up just wanting to talk about us. We make the meetings all about us. We ask things like, "Mr. Buyer, Mr. Prospect, can I have 10 or 15 minutes of your time? I won't take a lot of time." And what that means is, I want to talk about me, forget you. No, you can't approach it that way. So you have to put yourself in their shoes. You know, prospects are really smart right now. They've done more research on you and your company. They get on your website. They look at everything that you have to offer. They look at all the candy you've put on your website. They also go to your LinkedIn profile, and they know everything about you. So when you walk in, they're as well armed about you as I hope you are about them. They're very discerning. What you're actually paid to do when you go on a call is gain intelligence, gain information, not give it. But what do they expect that you're going to do? When you come in, they have preconceived notions about what you're going to do. So they meet you, they're smiling, they're very nice, they're happy to have you there. You've got to think about, why are they so happy to have me come in? Or why do they play guarded, like, what can you guys do for us? Why are you any different than anybody else? So here's what I want you to do to put yourself in their shoes. First of all, you, forget your role as a salesperson. Consider the word salesman. What comes to your mind when you think of the word salesman? Okay, we've done a lot of surveys, a lot of polling on this, and you know what kind of words come up? Insurance, Willy Loman, greedy, liar, all about them, pond scum. We hear all sorts of things about what people think of salespeople. And so what we've got to do is we got to try to take that away as quick as we can. Now, they meet a lot of salespeople, and so their hardwiring, their beliefs, the experiences they've had with so many traditional salespeople makes them guarded. You can imagine that. They've seen every trick. They know everything. You can say something simple like, "What keeps you up at night, Mr. Prospect?" And you think that's a genius move, but the fact of the matter is, they've heard it a gazillion times, and their first thought is, "Oh no, you're going to be just like everybody else." And so, How do we avoid that? How do we create an atmosphere where it's just two business people sitting across from the table, asking and answering each other's questions? You know what you have to do? You have to walk in with the belief that says, I don't care if I make a sale. I don't have anything to sell them today. I am simply here to find the truth, gain intelligence for my company, and find the truth. And the truth is, they either need your products or services, or they don't. Folks, you don't have to sell anymore. You simply have to go in and find the truth. Once again, that truth is, they either need you, your products, and your services, or they don't. That's all you have to find out. Since they're protecting themselves, they're going to keep their self-interest in mind first. They're going to be guarded. They're going to keep their cards close to the vest. And they do that for a reason, because they're really jaded. So let's look at, line by line, the 4 steps of the buyer's selling system. And some of these might sound really familiar to you. The first step in the buyer's system is this, and for those of you taking notes, this would be a good time to do it, although we're going to show it to you as well. The first step in their system is to withhold information. Sometimes I put it this way, they lie. Although I must tell you, I cannot stand that line, all buyers are liars. Only cheap, hack, traditional salespeople use that line. Buyers don't lie because they're evil or they've conspired against you. They're only doing it psychologically to protect themselves. What you have to be able to recognize when they withhold information or when they lie is that they're just doing it to protect themselves. They really want to date you for a while first. Unfortunately, there's way too many salespeople that just want to get married on the very first date. And the buyers are, oh, not so fast. Salespeople say things like, I'm here to find a solution to your needs. And if I do that, will you buy from me? And the buyer puts up this wall and goes, wow, way too quick. Back off just a little bit. So they kind of lie. What's that sound like in your world? My experience is, for most salespeople, traditional B2B salespeople, what the buyer says is this. We're already happy with our current supplier. Okay, they're happy in the moment. That doesn't mean they're happy every day. Companies experience 90-day heart attacks, so they are looking for other people. But they're going to withhold just to protect themselves. They also might say something like, well, we're not looking right now. Or they use this tactic. We're really frustrated with our current supplier, with our current vendor. You know what? They're not really. They just want to get you emotionally involved so that you'll do what's important to them in the second step of their system. And the second step in their system is to gain information from you and for you to give them a presentation. They'll say things like, sure, come on in, would you give us a presentation? We're a little frustrated with the quality, service, or expertise of who we're using right now, so come and tell us what you have to offer. Why are they so excited to hear what you have to offer? By the way, I refer to this sometimes as stealing. What is it they want to steal? They want your information. They want to take as much as you will give them. You know what they really want? They want your price. If they have your price, if they have an advantage in their negotiations with the person that they're currently working with, by the way, who they're probably in love with, go on golf outings or go on trips with all the darn time, but they're happy to throw that person under the bus, so you'll give them leverage. And then they just look at that current vendor and they hold it up and say, Bobby, I'm sorry, here's what company X can do. I'm just saying. And they act like they would never do that, but they would. If they get your information, they just might do it. At least they have leverage. A better chance that they won't, but now they have what they need, your candy. The next step in their system is commit to nothing. They're going to say something to you like, You're really good. I really love you. You look good to us. I'm going to go tell the other people in the committee all about you guys. Get back with me next week sometime. And they led you to believe, they've given you the Humanitarian of the Year award. They've led you to believe that you're in line to win the business. And they do that for a reason too. They want you to come back. Why do they want you to come back? Leverage, negotiating power for whom they're working with right now. They're pitting the two of you together. So they'll make no commitments. They say a lot of nice things. And by the way, traditional salespeople fall for that all the time. They go back and they tell their manager, we had a really, really good meeting. We really hit it off. They really liked me. I gave a great presentation. None of that means anything. It just means you have a need for approval and you like to hear those things. So that next system is they're going to commit to nothing. And that leads to the fourth step in their system. And the fourth step is this. They hide. They disappear from you. Have you ever been in one of those situations where you started picking up the phone and calling? They said, get back with me next week. I'm going to close the deal next week. And now they can't be found. You know, they got caller ID. They look down at the phone and they see who's calling, or they look at your email and they just go, I don't have to deal with that. I've got what I want. They believe that they don't have to return your call. They believe that they don't have to answer your email. You get frustrated all the time, but they have a deep belief that they don't have to do it. And here's the thing. David Sandler said, you can't get mad at somebody for doing something you didn't tell them they couldn't do. So you can't externalize. It was your fault that they're hiding, not theirs. Okay, now let me summarize that very quickly. The first step in their system is to withhold information. The second step is to gain information from you and get you to give them a presentation. Then, third step, they commit to nothing. Have you ever had that happen? And then finally, they start hiding from you. So why does that happen? This is an interesting piece here. Let's take a look at the traditional person's selling system and the methodology that had been around for a long time, and it was introduced by some great big companies here in the U.S., and it worked fabulously in the late 60s and early 70s. Selling has changed. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that selling's changed greatly in the last 5 years. And I don't know why it's not going to change in the next 4 to 5 years just as quickly. So how do we really get skilled at fighting what's going on? Now let me give you the traditional selling system. The first step in their system is qualify. They're told to go out and qualify a prospect. You know what my experience is? Again, a guy that spends 11 hours a day, 5 days a week with salespeople. Most salespeople, traditional salespeople, they don't know how to qualify. They don't really know what they're qualifying for. I've heard this a lot. Tim, there was smoke coming out of the smokestack. Tim, the parking lot is full. Tim, they're buying from our competitor, so they must be a qualified prospect. No, not for your business plan. Do you know what it is that you're qualifying for? The second thing they do in their system is they were taught to give a presentation. And they heard things from their manager like, go in there and tell them how good we are. Tell them what we can do. And so they're wired. Most salespeople, most traditional salespeople are wired to give a presentation as fast as they possibly can. That's very simply what they know. Present, present. Mr. Prospect, may I have just 15 minutes of your time? And the prospect knows darn well you just want to sit there, plug in your laptop, and start showing him everything that you can do. They know that they've got to be really skilled at their presentations, so I'm just going to go in there and show them what a great company we are. And the owners of their company are saying, you got to tell them how good we are. Tell them who we work with. Tell them everything that we can do. You got to persuade them. No, you don't. So, first step again, qualify. The second step in their system is to give a presentation. So they give the presentation, and then what have traditional salespeople done? They're taught to close. Have you ever heard that line, ABC, always be closing? How outdated is that? Most companies that really approach us at Sandler Training, they say this, Tim, we need to learn some closing skills. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say something to you. If you're working on closing, you're working on the wrong end of the problem. That's all there is to it. If you're working on the close, you're working on the wrong end of the problem. I have been in libraries before in the business section, and there are books out there written saying things like you'll never hear no again, or 320 ways to close a deal. What is that? We're going to walk in today? I know what we'll do. Let's use number 222. Or no, I was thinking about let's try number 138. You know what the only closing move you'll ever need? It's this. It's this simple. I don't know, Mr. Prospect. What should we do next? It's that simple. Again, qualify, present, close. And that leads to the traditional salesperson's fourth step. You know what the fourth step is? Chase. Because the chase has begun. Now, if you compare these two systems, the buyer's, the prospect system, and the traditional salesperson system, if you lay them side by side, ask yourself this question. Is this a relationship? And folks, I know that every company out there, they tell me all the time, Tim, we're looking to create a relationship. We want a partner-supplier relationship. We want to collaborate with people. That's all good and that's honorable. But look at the two systems side by side. It's a relationship, all right. It's an adversarial relationship. And the only person that's going to win that is the prospect. Every time. Okay. So David Sandler thought about this, and David Sandler created the Sandler selling methodology. In fact, it became so popular worldwide that Sandler then wrote the Sandler Rules. 49 rules for guiding you to success, for creating the right kind of beliefs. And now, today, in the year 2015, selling has gotten so sophisticated, we've applied the Sandler selling system to the enterprise sale. And y'all know what enterprise selling is. Enterprise selling is when you're working against very sophisticated, relentless competition who's got you and your clients in their sights every day of the week. Enterprise selling is when you spend a lot of money, you make a big investment in trying to win big corporate, global, worldwide deals. You're up against a lot of fierce competition and you are targeted. Sandler applies equally well in the enterprise selling situation. You know what? Let's have some fun now. Let's talk about what the 7 steps of the Sandler selling system are. Come on in, I'm going to take you into a different place. Let's check this out. There are 7 steps in the Sandler selling methodology. And please keep in mind, this is a tried and true methodology. Last year alone, 18,000 people went through Sandler training programs, over 475,000 hours of training. So you can be confident and comfortable that Sandler works. By the way, so you know, I chose the Sandler selling methodology 18 years ago. I chose it for these 3 reasons. Its high level of honor, integrity, and ethics. Those things were very important part of my own moral code, and so choosing the Sandler methodology, the Sandler system, was easy for me. Again, honor, integrity, and ethics. If you're ever taught anything that is assertive, aggressive, or pushy, the buyer's aware of it right away, and it creates a lot of pressure. One of the beautiful things about Sandler is there's no pressure on you to sell, and there's no pressure on the buyer to buy, on the prospect to buy. You know, over the years, I've heard a lot of managers, a lot of company owners say, Tim, if you don't ask for the sale, you're not going to get it. So I teach my people to ask for the sale. Folks, I just want to tell you, if you have to ask for the sale, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself and the prospect. Don't do that. It doesn't work anymore. The 7 steps of the Sandler selling system. The first one is bonding and rapport. And we place that in the first step of our system to remind everybody that you're always working on your human skills. You know, my experience is because most people are winging it on their alleged good people skills, they don't really know about people as well as or as clearly as they think they do. Let me ask you, what was the last book you read about the psychology of buying or the psychology of influence and persuasion? About people. I don't think people read about each other and study them. They take what they've collected in their minds over the years, and those experiences they've had about people become their final judgment. Yes, let me say it like this. Your perception is never accurate. One of the big challenges in selling is our perception's never accurate. So you come in with your experience, the same way they're judging you, their preconceived notion, we do it to them. We think all buyers are lying to us. We think they're withholding information intentionally. It's not true. If you spend time studying people, studying buyers, you'll get much better at your craft. So when we talk about bonding and rapport in our first step, we're really talking about how do you create a climate of trust. Sandler's very first rule in selling was this: people buy from people they like, and they like people who are like them. In lieu of all that, they buy from people they trust. You know, companies are looking for the latest, greatest. They actually want to meet with salespeople to find a better way of doing business. They want you to challenge their way of thinking and doing and buying things right now, but only if they trust you or they feel a similarity that happens at a very subconscious level. You know what my experience is? And I ask this question all the time. What's your strategy for developing trust with another human? Let me ask that to you again, and this time double underscore the word strategy in your mind. What's your strategy for developing trust with another human being? Most people can't answer that. Or I often look at them and say, don't answer it. You're about to say something stupid. And they are, because they don't understand the word trust. Let me test you on a second word, bonding and rapport. So just what does the word rapport mean? Okay, this is another question where you're going to make a lot of stuff up. You have a rough idea about what rapport means, but do you know the definition and how it really works? Let me just say, rapport is a French word that means give back or offer back. And what is it that you're giving back? Them. Perhaps their words, perhaps their tonality, most importantly, their body language. 55% of all effective communication is body language. How good are you at mirroring and matching your prospect? The second step to our system is called upfront contracts. Setting ground rules, creating expectations, gaining agreement. You know what our experience is at Sandler? People want to know what's going on. Buyers want to know what's going to happen in a meeting. They want to be productive with their time. You want to be productive with your time. How good are you at creating the expectations for you and for them? Listen to what the traditional salespeople say. Can I have 10 or 15 minutes of your time? What can you do then? And that these people look at me and say, Tim, I really get 30 minutes. But I tell them that because they're busy. That's not creating trust from the get-go at all. What we want you to do is gain agreement on the time. How much time are you going to get? And they have to agree to it up front before the meeting starts. We want them to agree on what their role would be. And by the way, their role is to answer your questions. Best-in-class salespeople keep control of the sales call. Buyers want you to default to their system. They want to be in control. So how do you create an environment where they feel like they're in control, but actually you're in control? I've often said, I'm in the driver's seat. I want them sitting behind the wheel so they feel like they're driving, but I cut the cable. I'm going to drive from over here. The next step, the next thing in an upfront contract is for a role identified for you. And you know what your role is? To ask them questions. Traditional salespeople tell me all the time, yes, Tim, I know what my role is, to answer their questions. And they get really prepared for that. No, it's not. Your role is to ask them questions to find the truth. And the last step that you should agree to up front before the meeting starts is an outcome, a decision or an outcome. Mrs. Prospect, what happens at the end of this meeting? And you know what you have to do? You've got to empower them to say no. Typically, at the end of a meeting like this, Mrs. Prospect, there's only a couple outcomes, a no and a yes. Let me tell you what no means. No simply means there's not a match between what you're looking for and I do. No might mean that you don't like me. Or you like me, but you don't like my price. Or you like me, you like the price, but you don't like our product. If one of those three situations happen, please, Mrs. Prospect, you can say no to me. It's okay. I won't take it personally. I won't get emotionally involved. Can you say no to me? You got to get them to agree first to say no to you. On the other hand, if it's a yes, yes simply means we'll take little baby steps. Now, yes could mean, what are the next steps? Baby steps might actually be big steps. It may mean close the deal. More often than not, especially in an enterprise sale, that's not what it is. There are next steps. But let me ask you something. If there was a no, when would you want to know that? Sooner or later? Intellectually, all salespeople can tell me sooner. Tim, I want to know at my earliest convenience when I can close the file. But you know what more salespeople tell me? More amateur salespeople? Tim, I can't stand the word no. I don't want to ever hear no. No hurts me. Are you there to have your needs met? Or are you there to go to the bank? You're there to either close the sale or close the file. No big deal, one way or another. I celebrate a no as much as I do a yes, as long as I've earned it honorably. The third step in our system, it's actually the first step of qualifying for a highly trained, well-disciplined Sandler person. The first step of qualifying for us after the ground rules are start and the meeting begins is to find pain. People buy for two reasons: pleasure or avoid pain. Think about something you've bought recently. You either did it for one of those two conditions: to gain pleasure, oh, I bought a yacht, oh, I've always wanted a yacht, or avoid pain. Those two reasons. At Sandler, we qualify for pain because pain is a greater emotion. We know, we have a deep-seated belief at Sandler that the first thing a prospect tells you, the first problem they give you, is never the real problem. And so we're very patient in this qualifying step. We're going to listen to the surface problem, an indication of pain they give us. But then we're going to start finding out what kind of business problems does that call. How long has it been a problem, Mr. Prospect? What have you done to try to fix that? We're going to start moving down our pain funnel to find the truth. And after we have good, solid business reasons, how much is it costing them, all those kind of things, we're going to find out how it's affecting them personally, what the personal impact is. And we have a belief at Sandler. There's always a personal impact. And we also have a rule: no pain, no sale. Once we have qualified the prospect for pain, the next step in our system, step number 4, and the second step of qualifying, is to talk about money. The investment step, the budget step. You know what our experience is at Sandler? Most people aren't very comfortable about talking about money. In fact, many of us were raised, I know what my record collection was, my head trash. It was, shh, Timmy Roberts, never ask somebody how much something costs. Shh, never talk about money. That's not polite. Never ask another man what's in his wallet. We were given all these scripts when we were children. And all of us are very different experiences. But these scripts, the messages that we were giving about money, often make us vulnerable in the meeting. Think of this. What if the CFO of your company went on a call, sales call with you, and you started to get to the point after there was clear pain, not before? We do things in order. Very systematic, highly trained, well-disciplined. You know, the CFO, when we started talking about money, what kind of questions would the CFO, your controller of your company, what would they ask the prospect? You're asking, what's the price? Can you give me an idea of what you're paying now? You lead with price all the time. The buyer knows it. The buyer knows this, that if they simply ask, can you do a little better? I really like your product and services, and I'm on your side. If you could just do a little bit better, we'll give the business to you. They know that 92% of salespeople run back and do that. Run back and get a lower price all the time. What would the CFO do? The CFO would not lead with that. The CFO would lead with questions about money. Now, how much is this challenge, this frustration that you've told me about, what do you think it's costing you? They would do pain by numbers, because they understand if a prospect has a $100,000 challenge or a $6 million or a $100 million challenge, they know they're willing to make a certain investment to make that go away. We've got to be able to talk about money. When you sit down with a prospect, they're still suspects at this point, and you find good qualified pain, evidence why they are really looking for somebody else to help them out, what you got to do next is you got to have a skilled CFO-like conversation about what are they willing to invest. Now, so we found pain. We've qualified for them money. And there's 2 words looking for when we're qualifying for money: willing and able. A prospect must be willing and able to give you money. Those are 2 very different concepts. They might be willing, but they're not able. Or they might be quite able. They might have lots of cash, but they're not willing to give it to you. You've got to be able to discern and qualify for both those things, willing and able. So now we know they have an investment. They're ready to give it to us. They want this challenge, this problem, this pain to go away. They have a need in traditional talk. You might have the solution. But you know, we still have one more step. The 5th step, step number 5 at Sandler, and the 3rd step of qualifying. And I want to tell you something here, folks. Take notes on this one. Listen to this. This is where 75% of all deals are blown. And it's called the decision-making process step. In our system, we are very skilled at finding out who has influence and authority to make a decision to fire somebody they're currently working with and choosing someone new. By the way, you know what most of you have for your number 1 challenge? Getting the buyer, getting the prospect to fire their current supplier. That's the number 1 challenge you're up against. You know what most traditional salespeople do? Here's the question they ask. Are you the decision maker? Folks, think about that. If somebody asks you, are you the decision maker, what are you going to say 100% of the time? Yes, I am. And then you're going to find out 6 months later, no, they're not. You have to be a heat-seeking missile for influence and authority. You've got to figure out the flow chart of their organization. You got to start counting the votes, finding out if you're going to win. Now, that's 5 steps. Now listen to what we've done. We're always working on our bonding rapport. We're always building trust, creating an environment. I'm a trusted advisor. They're a qualified prospect. We set the ground rules. We understand they have a challenge they want to make go away. They've got the money to do it. And now we know how, when, where, how. All those things, the decision is going to be made. We know the timeline clearly when a decision is going to be made. You can go back and tell your manager on whatever date at 3 o'clock, I'll get my no or my yes. Wouldn't you love to know that? Exactly when you're going to get your decision. So we have everything qualified. And you know what we're ready to do now? Step number 6 in our methodology, what we call the fulfillment step. The traditional crowd knows it as a presentation. But for a Sandler trained professional, the fulfillment step is when we fulfill the pain they have. We make it go away. We fulfill the investment they're willing to make, and we fulfilled and honored the way they're going to go about making a decision. Their timeline. We're on top of all that. Now we have earned the right to give a presentation. Let me caution you here. Listen to these words. You must earn the right to give a presentation. Earn it. You have to have evidence and criteria that you have earned this moment. For us, the presentation step is now a cakewalk. In fact, David Sandler said, listen to this line, this is fabulous. Sandler said, the best presentation you'll ever give is the one they won't see. Sandler trained professionals often don't have to give a presentation because by the time they're done qualifying for paying, budget, and decision-making process, the buyer says, I love you, I want to do business with you. But you know what our advantage is? When we give a presentation, we're giving it exactly to what they're looking for. There's too many amateurs running around saying, I'm looking for somebody who I can create a best fit solution for. You know what we do at Sandler? We look for best fit problems that we might be able to solve. See, you're thinking about it the wrong way. I'm looking for best fit problem. I don't know if I can solve it yet, but if I find something that matches what I do, now I've earned the right to present, and I'm gonna present to exactly what they've asked me to do. So I should win the business. Then the last step in our system, before we're done, step number 7 is what we call the post-sell. Folks, here's what happens. You ever heard of buyer's remorse? There's a lot of salespeople that are very charming, convincing, and persuasive. They give incredible multi-million-dollar PowerPoint presentations, and the buyers get all jiggy excited. And then 2 days later they go, wow, we can't really afford that. That's not us. We can't have all those things. And they call you up and say, I'm sorry, we have to back out of the deal. Or they hide from you and you lose. At Sandler, there's a couple things we do right at the end. Right when they're ready to say the contract, I actually pull it away and say, Mrs. Prospect, before we close this, can I play devil's advocate? Why don't you just stay with the problem that you got? Are you sure this is something that you want to do? Because when the other company comes back, they're going to come back rolling out the red carpet. They're going to offer you an even lower price. They're going to promise you the entire world. What's going to happen when they come back? Should we do this? Or do you just want to stay with the devil that you know? If I've done everything right, you know what the prospect says? No, Tim, I'm with you right now. I know how to handle them when they come back. Let's get the paper out. Let's sign now. I've got to make sure that their adult ego state is in the room. I can't have their child make a buying decision. Does that make sense? Is that fair? The other thing I'm going to do at the end of a meeting is I might have to rehearse them, because they might have to go and talk to other people in the building. So I'm going to have to talk about, I'm going to have to teach them to sell. What happens when the CFO puts the hammer down? What if the CEO says, but my next door neighbor's in the same business, or I bought it from my brother-in-law. I can't turn them down. Thanksgiving dinner will be horrible. I've got to rehearse them for what's going to happen. And you know what? When you close a deal, folks, and this is where the traditional crowd makes their biggest mistake, it's a perfect time to ask for a referral. Too many traditional salespeople say, well, Tim, I have to establish a track record first. No, you don't. They're really excited now that they've chosen you, and they'd like to tell everybody about you. It's a perfect time to ask for a referral. Do yourself a favor. The next time you win business, make a commitment. Don't leave the room until you say, hey, Mrs. Prospect, Mrs. Customer now, I'm going to spend a lot of my time making sure that what we've promised you works well. And because I spend so much time taking care of my customers, taking care of my clients, it doesn't leave me a lot of time for prospecting. Could you help me? Could you introduce me to somebody kind of similar to what you do, where I might be a good fit? Folks, they'd be delighted to help you out. Those are the 7 steps in the Sandler methodology. That was kind of an overview of our selling system. In your mind, as we end, just consider, what would the benefits be of having a methodology, a system? We could teach to other people who join our team easily. We could find out exactly where we made mistakes. We'd all have a common language so that when we did our pre-calls and our debriefings, we'd all be on the same page. We would know exactly how to forecast possibility, opportunities. Our accuracy in our pipeline forecasting would be much more predictable. There are many advantages to having a system. There are plenty of disadvantages to not having one. It's your choice. Best in class people choose Sandler for a reason. It's a system, tried and true, that they can count on. Hope you choose wisely. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us, and I hope you join us for our next module, where we start off talking about bonding and rapport.